Thank you for coming today. We'll get started with our question and answer section. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. I will point to you, ask you to stand up, and clearly speak your question. Yes?
My question is simple. We're talking about music.
Correct?
The fact is that I loved iTunes, and all of a sudden I hate it because of what they've been doing. Are we going to get an explanation of that during the course of this discussion?
I will give you my best effort on that. Your question is how come iTunes sucks?
Yes.
Okay. That was in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Yes, iTunes has gone through a lot of different iterations over the years, and I will try and touch on that. They keep trying to make improvements, as they say, and some of the improvements sort of go against what we were used to seeing and expecting inside of iTunes. And that some things are really good, some things are less than good. So we'll try and touch on that. That would be a whole meeting to itself, explaining the generation of iTunes and where things went wrong. So, but thank you for that question. Do we have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is it true when I die, my computer has all my music on it and my kids can't have it?
So the question is, when she passes away, will all her content on her computer be unavailable to her children? Anything that was, say, purchased through iTunes, is that correct?
What if I put it on several discs and give them the, because I paid for a lot of that.
Okay, so.
I copied all my library.
Okay, so with iTunes, if you purchase music, you agreed that legally the music is yours and yours alone. And some lawyers made sure that that was in there because, one, back when iTunes started, the lawyers wanted to make sure, the lawyers from the music industry wanted to prevent piracy. And so that's why the music was licensed to you to use as you are alive. Once you pass on, that music legally is no longer yours because you are no longer with us. What families do for purchased music is, as long as they know the password to your iTunes account, they can continue to use that, on and on. It is a new question because iTunes has only been around now for essentially 18 years. And you think about it and it's like, wow, that's a long time ago. No, it's not. And some people that bought music back then, I have a friend that passed away a few years ago, and he bought a lot of music. His sister said, how do I get this music? And I explained to her, you don't. You don't qualify for it. iTunes does not recognize you as the heir to that content. Same thing with like movies that he downloaded through iTunes. When he passed, that stuff went along with him because he did not leave his password with any family members. If he had, she would be able to technically continue using it. When you burn music to CDs or DVDs to like pass to family members, purchase content will require the password to be authorized on that computer or that device that it's trying to play on. So if you gave your favorite grandchild a DVD full of your favorite music and a bulk of it was purchased through iTunes, if she does not have the password for your iTunes account, she will be unable to play any of that content. Right, because the record companies insisted at the time that Apple include DRM, which is digital rights management, on the music. Apple has since changed that, and so it no longer is required on there where it can only be on a limited number of devices, but it's still tied to your Apple ID. So my suggestion is If you want to pass that content along to family members, make sure that they have access to that passcode for that account, so that way they can do it. Because you can have multiple iTunes accounts or Apple IDs on your computer. I am living proof of that. I have 7. I have 7 different IDs that I have purchased content under. All that music is on one computer. I have to remember the password for each 7 of those accounts, which can be daunting at times, because I've been told, well, just make it the same password for all 7 accounts. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. That's that's silly. It's not secure, it's not safe. But that's where it would come into for music, or if you had video, as far as iTunes goes. If you'd like to continue that conversation, you can talk to Apple in their iTunes department and ask them why, and I'm sure that they'll give you a nice legal response on why they don't do it. So, unfortunately, that's what it's going to be, but if you make sure you have your password, they'll be able to use it. Yes?
I've burned plenty of music on CDs, and I play them in my car.
Sure.
Nobody requests a password. Maybe I missed something. If you burn it to a CD, I can play it anywhere. I don't need a password.
So if you are playing it just to play in your car, it will authorize that CD to be played to do that. But if you try to copy that music over to another device from that CD and then try to play it, it will ask for authorization at that point in time.
So that she can play it on her.
So you could put it in the car radio and it'll play. Yes, you are correct.
Record that. She could give the discs and they could play it in the CD player.
Yes.
But
they couldn't put it onto their computer without authorizing that content. Now, the CDs that you've ripped into iTunes, they have full access to all of that. So that won't be an issue there for them, because that's going to be music that you converted. It's the purchase content that draws the legal fine wire walking act. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, yes, again, I've burned CDs and given them as gifts to people.
Sure.
I have no idea what they're doing with it. I just listening to it.
And if that's all they're doing, like popping it in the car radio or into a CD player, it'll play. But if they put it into a computer, with maybe with the hopes of copying it to their computer library in iTunes, it will ask them for that password for that before it'll play. Okay. Yes.
Books, iBooks or books now.
Sure.
You can have family sharing. So,
Yes.
And so now my wife has my books. When I pass, does she no longer have my books?
In a technical legal sense, I will say I am not a lawyer.
Okay.
With that being said, would she have your books because you are using family sharing, or would she lose access to that? I believe she would keep access to that as long as the family sharing is enabled and she has access to your password to make sure that your account is current, and that to go from there. As far as the books go, I don't know the complete answer on that one. I know that with family sharing, my daughter can play any of the movies that I have downloaded from iTunes. She can play any of the music content that I have downloaded from iTunes. I can play any of her music content that she's downloaded from iTunes. And the same with my wife. So family sharing is good in a way to give you access to the other person's.
There's a lesson here.
There is a lesson here.
And the
You are
lesson is
correct.
for your loved ones and family that you would leave things to, like jewelry and stuff like that. Leave your passwords too.
Right. So that is a very big issue for a lot of people.
They call
Because-
that a digital will.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. And that makes a lot of sense because none of us are growing younger. So that kind of information should be kept someplace. And I believe it should also be updated on probably a yearly basis, just to make sure that, well, I changed the password on this account and go, what about here? I I have a list of things, and I have a file for my wife, and it's everything. You want to get into my E-Trade account? This is how you do it. You want to get into this? This is how you do it. And that is safely put away someplace. I have it in paper form for her. I also have it on a thumb drive. So that way she's got access to it either way. But there are people that are doing okay, well, I'm going to keep it up in the cloud. Okay, you can do that. You know, there's the password managers will give you lots of access to things like that. So if you need to, that would be something to keep in mind. So yeah, a digital will is not a bad thing.
Where do you get,
Yes,
where can you get a copy of a digital will?
you make it yourself.
No, I mean, there's no format.
Oh, we have an answer. So the question is, where do you get a format of a digital will?
We have a great MacGroup video from someone who actually took over that topic and did a very in-depth video for us. Your digital legacy. You look at some of the MacGroup-Detroit videos up on YouTube. Your digital legacy is up there.
Okay,
That might be a good topic to review and rehash or something.
I would agree with you. I will have to look at this video because I forgot about it. But if it's on our YouTube site, then yeah. So digital legacy was the topic. All right. Well, I think that's great. Oh yeah. Okay.
It's current.
All right.
It's very
All right. So we'll have to. Yeah. So we'll have to look at it. Hopefully, we'll see a lot of new hits on that site tonight, with everybody taking a peek at it. So, do we have any other questions before we get started? No? All right then. Then we shall get the show on the road. And so this commercial was put out by Apple back in 2001. This commercial was a stage full of musicians that they got a lot of famous people to show up for that commercial. And that was part of the Rip, Mix, Burn campaign that Apple was doing because, believe it or not, CD burners were really starting to get big back then. Now we don't even think about CD burners. But that commercial was shot with the hopes of encouraging people to buy Macs so they would have an easy way to put a playlist together in iTunes, burn it to a CD, and go from there. So they could take their music from other CDs and other sources, rip it into the computer, create a playlist by mixing it up and then burning it to a disk. And Apple got sued for this technology by a lot of record companies because they're like, no, you're giving people too easy a way to copy our content and just hand it out left and right, like burning a CD to give to family members. So they settled the lawsuit, but that was probably one of their memorable ads. So today's topic is music, iTunes, and beyond. I've got a couple of categories that I've broken this up into, and we will approach it as best possible. So for, well, let's just get right into it. So when the first iPod came out, the whole campaign was 1,000 songs in your pocket because it would fit in your pants pocket. And that was something that Steve Jobs, when they announced it, he just kept saying it over and over just to drive the point home. Because before, you couldn't do that. Before, that wasn't really an option for you. So we're going to look back on history a little bit and then move forward as well. So, starting off with Take 5. There are pretty much 5 formats that I think everyone is familiar with. First being record albums, followed by tape, and there's a lot of different versions of tape out there. Then we hit CDs and DVDs. Then it went into digital downloads. You know, iTunes didn't do it first, but I believe they did it best. And then now is streaming, where you can stream your content to any of your devices that you have. Looking at some of the stuff that I'm sure everyone here has probably had in their house at some point in time, and probably still have, yeah. You know, the big pack, you know, I can't think of how many milk crates of albums I had growing up, you know, from whether it was 45s or 33 1/3. I remember my mom having all these 78s that we would just, the HiFi was always playing. Going into, oh, hey, here's portable. It's an 8-track. A friend of mine gave me some 4-track tapes. And I'm looking at them, what are these? And at the time, I didn't realize it. They were quite valuable because they were Beatles 4-track tapes. He's like, oh yeah, these were my sisters when they were growing up. And his sisters were 10 years older than he was. He's my age. He still has those 4-track tapes, surprisingly. Cassette tapes were great. They weren't just for answering machines. You could use them for other things as well. And then we got into CDs, and then DVDs, and heck, even now it's Blu-rays. So that's some of what we've gone through. The next thing is really going back far. So, wax cylinders. Edison created the wax cylinder for recording audio. And, you know, it was like, okay, from the wax cylinders, it went to vinyl. From vinyl, it went to tape. And again, the guy down the street when I grew up had the best audio system in the world because he had a reel-to-reel tape deck. And it was just amazing the quality of sound that came out of that compared to a little cassette player or something like that. You know, while Thomas Edison had many inventions in his lifetime, I think the ability to record sound, it created a brand new industry because there was no way to have recorded sound before. The vinyl records definitely was a huge step in the evolution of music. How many people remember records on the back of cereal boxes?
Yeah.
Okay, So they played horrible. They played absolutely horrible. They were never flat. You'd watch the arm up and down, as you tried to play that record that they gave away on the cereal boxes. But I remember my sister begging and pleading with my mom to buy one box of cereal to get her, I think it was a Sean Cassidy song, because she just thought he was the most incredible guy in the world. And I remember she played it as much as she could until it ripped through the little vinyl record on the back of the cereal box. I jumped into the tape end of the world because it was more portable, and it was just, I thought, easier. And there was so many different formats from reel to reel, from the 4-track, 8-track cassette to Philips even had one that came out in the 80s after CDs came out, and it was called digital compact cassette. So I want you to imagine a cassette tape that has a door on it like a floppy disk. And the door slides over and it plays the digital content from that tape on there. It didn't go really well for Philips. I think it was on the market for only about 2 years when they pulled the plug on it. But most of the things that they were putting out there were classical recordings. And the sound quality was just truly amazing all the way around. So speaking of wax cylinders, that's our upper left corner, which my understanding is with the wax cylinders, the needles had very short lifespans on there, due to the fact that as they would play, they would sometimes groove into the recording. And so you were limited on how many times you could use the same needle. The Victrola below it would play the 78s, and that technology stepped up. It was a little bit better. My wife would like the large cabinet on the right. That's a Victrola as well. She would like that as a furniture piece in our house. But that just shows how everything kept moving forward with the technology. Speaking of houses, think back about how you consumed content when you were growing up. What device made that possible? Do you remember being home at certain times and certain days to listen to certain shows, whether it's on the radio or on television? I think most people, by the time the 80s rolled around, had their favorite TV shows that I got to be home at Thursday night at 8 o'clock because I can't miss a show, or Tuesdays at 7, what have you. And the radio started that first. TV picked it up after that. And then it just kept going. And then this was a question I always asked. Did you have a HiFi or did you have a stereo? Okay. Because that was my wife's question. It's like, well, my dad built a HiFi. Went to Radio Shack, bought all the parts, and built a HiFi. And I went, well, pardon me. I was more of a stereo guy myself because HiFis weren't a thing at my time when I was in high school. That's what I would like to have in my house for a stereo system. Yeah, that's a lot of speakers. It's rather impressive. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the changes that have come through with music. I think all of us remember a transistor radio, whether we were listening to the ball game or listening to music or whatever we were interested in at the time. And it was funny because some people do I remember sneaking the radio in bed so I could listen late at night to the radio. And then I remember my grandfather had a transistor radio, and anytime the Tigers were playing, it was on, and he was listening to the ball game. So there's a lot of memories that come from that as well. The one thing that I thought was really neat was portable record players. When my parents bought a house from my grandmother before she passed away for a place for her to live, there was a 53 Dodge Meadowbrook in the garage. It probably hadn't run in 25 years when we bought the house. It had a record player inside the car. And it would play 45s. It popped down out from under the dash by the glove box and pulled up, and you could put a 45 on it and play 45s.
I had one of those in my 65 GTO. The record 45 went up and the arm came in from under and pushed up against it.
Oh, it did? Okay, so it worked the other way. Okay, yeah, because in the car that came with the house, the whole record player it was on a big double swing arm, and it came up and you just set it there. And my dad's statement was, yeah, it's great when you're parked. It's no good if you're trying to go down the road.
Yeah, they don't work anymore in Michigan roads.
You're right, Michigan roads in particular.
Those were the days of drive-ins, though.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's drive-ins.
Yep. So that got us to there. Next up, the portable cassette player. And last on the memory road would be the portable CD players. The Sony Walkman was a cassette player. And back then, you were the coolest kid in school if you had one of those. That was like the ultimate. The Discman was their portable CD player. And that was something my wife gave me after we got married, because she knew I was such an audio freak and we were starting to get into CDs. And so we did that. At the bottom is transistor radios, which all different types of transistor radios, which is just, I think, really, really cool. They're very collectible nowadays. Just whether they work or not, I'm told, they all have a lot of value, not just sentimental. Yes?
Okay. When I was a young kid, maybe 5th, 6th grade, I had interest in radio. And one of the big things that they were selling were something called Rocket, and they were crystal. Crystal.
Right.
Yes. And also, during the Korean War, they built, the GI built a what they call a razor blade, where you can use a pencil lead and a razor blade to actually listen to a radio connected to the barbed wire or an antenna. And they were able, we here in the Detroit area have 50,000 clear channels, able to listen to WJR and listen to the ball game while they watched on duty.
Really?
Yeah, it was like 2 stations.
So crystal radios I am aware of, but the razor radio, that's some ingenuity going on there.
It worked.
Okay.
That was crazy. But I built all sorts of crystal radios, but I'll tell you one funny story now. Shut up. The fact is that my mother had one of she had the only radio in the house, and that was in her kitchen.
Okay.
She wanted to listen to what she wanted to listen to. And my father wanted to listen to Terry. Well, I had a crystal radio which I put together, fairly a little bit more sophisticated than normal. And I put it in the basement, and I ran a wire around the basement for antenna. I said to my dad, "You want to hear the volume?" He said, "Yes, come downstairs." So I put the thing in his ear, tuned it with WJR, and he listened to the volume. That made me feel very
Did you ever get your dad out of the basement again?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Because I'm thinking if your mom controlled the radio, which makes sense, and dad's like, okay, basement's now my room for listening to the game.
I felt good about the fact that I was able to get him something that he couldn't.
That's tremendous. That really is cool. Okay. Yes, Jim.
One minor blast from the past in the Walkman was about 81 or so. Standing in a computer room next to a fax. The vendor that was there was real proud of it, and he showed me that if you pushed a button on it, it would activate the microphone so he could hear what was happening around him, even though he had his plugs in his ears. And that's the only one that I saw that pass-through capability, so you could listen to the people instead of none.
Oh, okay. Was he recording to do that at the same time, or?
No, that was just
It just had a pass-through setup. Okay, all right. I know that I went to the state fair one year to see a band that I liked a lot, and I stood in the stands in the back with my little GE tape recorder, and I taped the entire concert. And I thought to myself, oh, this is great. And I get home and I play it, only to find out that, to my surprise, it recorded in stereo. I had no idea. I thought I was just going to get a mono copy of this. And it recorded it in stereo, and I could hear the left and the right. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then my brother broke it. So, not the end of the world, but these things happen. So, okay, well, moving along. We're going to go back to the future, which sort of is amusing at the same time. So, digital downloads. That's where we're at nowadays. Everybody does a digital download. Streaming services. We're going to talk about that as well. There are many different vendors that offer streaming services, and they're all on a subscription basis. So you have to decide, is it worth it for you or is it not? Some of them offer free versions, but you get commercials. So similar to listening to the radio. Then there's satellite radio. Sirius and XM joined forces years ago, and now it's just Sirius XM radio. Comes in your new cars. It is a wonderful thing. It is a horrible thing at the same time. And then, believe it or not, vinyl records. They are back, and they are back with a vengeance. There is a musician in Detroit by the name of Jack White. He owns a company called Third Man Records. He has a plant in Nashville. He has one here in Detroit, and I believe he's opening another one up, I want to say in LA. And he's setting it up to be a recording studio as well. One of the neatest things that I saw, he has a booth that lets you record your song straight to vinyl. And you look at it, and it's a giant phone booth. Someone goes inside, they take their guitar with them, and they sing to the microphone, and it records that audio right then and there onto a disc. And then from there, you can either play the disc, or he brought in machinery from Germany where you can actually create new discs, vinyl, from that master to play from there. And there's been a lot of famous people that have gone just to do that. I want to try this out because this is something that was big in the 30s and 40s and then faded out in the 50s. And that was just due to technology getting better and better. So with that being said, I can see why vinyl's coming back. The audiophile friends of mine that I would say are music snobs say, oh, vinyl, there's nothing better than vinyl. I like the clear, crisp sound of CD and digital, but if you want to tell me there's more warmth in that vinyl record, that's okay. But I can also hear pops and hisses too. So it's up to you what you like to enjoy what you're listening to. Richard?
You're talking about this going into the phone booth and making a record.
Correct.
You're talking like that's something new, but when I was a child, I remember going to New York City and in the Empire State Building or someplace here, Rockefeller Center, I don't know where, you could go and make your own little record.
Right.
And I still have it, so it's only a little record about so.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you
But-
just talk into it.
Yeah, but when you were a child, that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
that technology did fade by the wayside because people were recording on tape.
Oh,
And so they found it more efficient to do that because that way they could splice the tape and edit it and make things go easier. But it's funny how it seems to have come looped back around.
So what this guy is doing now with the phone booth, that's just an update of older technology.
It's actually the older technology. He's had these booths rebuilt back to the original specs. So when you go in and you play a song, it's going to sound like when you recorded your record when you were a child. It's going to have the same quality, not latest and greatest quality.
Lo-fi.
Very lo-fi, yes, you are correct. Dan?
There were also audio file recordings called, used to be called direct to disc. Dave Brubeck, for instance, did a whole bunch. And it still had the hisses and pops, but it was exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. The big problem is the storage medium and the methodology to get it off of the storage medium to your ears. So if the guy found the phone booth, then he probably found a storage video, or vinyl recording. But if you have, for example, a 78 and you don't have a record player, all you got is a rather weird serving piece.
Correct.
Or 5 1/4-inch discs.
Sure.
Or 3s. And beta tapes. Or you have a beta player, but all the beta tapes are. So you end up getting.
True. You end up with a lot of the same content on a number of different things.
Well, you end up with a whole slew of devices.
Right.
And a whole slew of storage media that may not be compatible. So you go out and my niece was looking for a record player.
Sure.
No, my grandniece is looking for a record player because it's the big hit thing.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got one, but it's in a piece of furniture. The records are one place. The hardware is. Anyway, it's like.
Okay. So
It.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's Back to the Future, but let's face it, print took over from audio, printing. Then you get into publishing and stuff, but all the media still exists. All of the content still exists.
True.
It's when it's all together that you
Right. So
can get or not get. And what's really terrible is if you know it exists and you could actually get your hand on it, but you cannot use it because of one thing or another.
right. Well, with technology always advancing, you're right. Trying to find a record player that'll play 78s,
Or 33.
it'll take a little. 33s is not a problem. Neither are 45s. 78s are
45.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy
So-
to play 78s on modern players, but they're not called record.
right.
And what's really fascinating is the millennials who you think would be doing all the streaming. They're buying the $50,000 record players,
Right.
and direct to discs, and all the master recording. It's like it's all being reinvented by a generation that didn't want anything to do with it 10 years ago.
Right. But now they want to go back to that. They have a reason. I don't know what it is. So I look back, and my first album I ever got was from our neighbors, and it was my birthday, and they gave me Sgt. Pepper's. So that was the first record I ever owned. I wore that record out. I bought it again. I wore that out. I bought it again. I own it on cassette. I own it on 8-track. I own it on CD. I own it on the remastered CD. I also have the digital version of it as well. I've bought that same record I don't know how many times. And that's sort of the drawback, because I was happy playing the record, but I didn't have a turntable anymore. And that's, I think, to Pat's point, is the equipment still there? And it's now coming back, because you can walk into Target today and buy a Crosley turntable that will play 33s, 45s. It might even do 78s, possible. Yeah.
There's still 78s being produced.
Yes.
Maybe
So
one time every 100 is a 78.
that brings up something else. Right here on the stage, I have a box. It's the Ion turntable. This turntable will take your records and let you digitize them. You can do it a few different ways. You can plug an iPad or an iPod, or I guess even an iPhone that has a 30-pin connection into it. So that tells you how long that's been out. It also has a USB plug that will let you plug it into your computer. So it's a great thing, and I was talking with Richard about it earlier. The problem with this, which is why I haven't pulled out my milk crates of records and got started, one of my good friends did this. His complaint was, you record the record, it digitizes it. Okay, you have to play the record in real time. When it finishes, you have to stop it, flip it over, play the other side. When that's done, now you have a digital file with pops and hisses and all kinds of noise. So there's software that will clean it up, get rid of some of the pops and hisses. Okay, I will do that for records that are not available digitally or on a CD. So when I was in high school, I was in band and orchestra. We have records from concerts. I remember that. Those, I have no problem sitting down, cleaning them up, playing them, digitizing them, so I can then share them with the other people I went to high school with. But I'm not going to throw Sgt. Pepper's on this, because I already have it in so many other forms. And it just doesn't make sense to put that much effort into something that I can readily get in another flavor. Now, if there was one song on a record that wasn't available on any of the new ones, I would probably go to it and digitize it that way. But that turntable sold for $150. My wife got it for me on clearance at Bed Bath & Beyond, I think it was, for $50. It came down to $100, and I'm like, and then it went to $50, and then, okay, for $50, I'll get something that's going to get a lot of dust. And I'm good with that. They now make a tape player for cassette tapes that'll do the same thing. You can plug it in the USB port on your computer and record the cassette tapes to your drive. As Richard was pointing out, boy, doesn't that take up a lot of hard drive space? Yes, it could, depending on what level of quality that you want. And that was something that Brian and I talked about with CDs. I'm a bit of a music junkie. Everyone I know has let me borrow their CDs at one point in time. And I have ripped CDs so I could put it on the iPod. And then I ripped them again at higher quality. And now I've ripped them a third time because I'm now running them in the highest quality that you can do in iTunes, which is called Apple Lossless. Apple Lossless gives you the little tiny ding of the triangle in the song where you normally wouldn't hear it. But to me, it's important. To my wife, she could care less. Doesn't mean a thing to her. But with that being said, everyone can decide what level of quality they want when they convert their music and go from there. So, yes.
If you needed a new needle for that, could you buy it?
Yes. You can through Ion, they will sell you a needle on that. So what I've done, this is actually my second one. The first one died. So my wife went back and found another one on clearance, and now I have this one. But yeah, Ion will sell the needle for it until they don't. And at that point, I'll be done with it. I'll have to move forward. With that device, I think it's really awesome that I can record some things and digitize it without spending a small fortune on paying somebody else to do it. Because there are companies that will take those things and do it for you, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg to do it. For me, at $50, it was worth to me to spend that money for it. At $150, I was on the fence. Yeah.
Just a data point from sometime late last century. I believe the turntable was around $90. It was analog, but the blue and white G3 had analog inputs.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked fine. And I had a Chopin album with Arthur Rubinstein.
Okay.
No better Chopin available. I digitized it, put it onto a CD. It was a 2-album set, fit on one CD. And when I plugged that CD into iTunes, it went out to the CD database and said, "Oh, this is Arthur Rubinstein playing Chopin."
Yeah.
I hadn't told it.
Nope.
So you can get some magic. But the one album that I have not seen lately and digitized is the one I listened to when I was pretty much a pup, before driving age even, was Gershwin playing Rhapsody in Blue on I believe it was 2 sides, so 8 sides of 78 RPM. So you load the stack and it go through the record player, and then you turn it over. And even with all that fuss, that particular piece of music was worth all the effort.
Sure.
And there's a recording piano, or his recording piano is up in the museum near Traverse City, the Music Museum.
Okay.
And it is still just as fabulous.
And I think that's the whole point of music to me, and hopefully to a lot of other people. Music will take you someplace else. Someplace that you didn't think was possible to reach, and it'll just carry you away, just off and rolling. Pat?
Because I work in a library, people will come in with the content in one format and want to, but we don't have the hardware so that they can use it.
Correct.
So then it's a matter of converting it to something. And that was my issue. There's all this, and then the other one is the media that we're using, the vinyl. Basically the tape and the discs and the jump drives and even the iCloud. How long will it last? Are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years before the media deteriorates or gets corrupted? You're talking about your iCloud or whatever. If you can't access it, it's gone. Of course, no matter, things come and go, but the technology is great, but its staying quality is getting shorter and shorter, a little bit like Loose Street.
That's possible.
Yep.
That's very possible. Yep.
Keep it.
So,
Really
Richard?
never be seen
Just
again.
one esoteric format, very limited, is recording music, on a paper roll,
Yes.
punching holes.
Mm-hmm.
But all you need is a piano. That's the
Yeah.
hardest part.
Right. So the player pianos that took those roles, there are people that still repair those, and those pianos are still available. Now the player pianos run off CDs. You put a CD disc in, and off it goes. And someone said that they're probably going to end up being able to just have it connected to the internet, and you just tell it the song, and it just picks it up and off it goes, which would be pretty amazing. Growing up, we had a player piano in our house, and it was always fun trying to carefully take the paper roll out of the box, thread it in the piano, and let it play so you could watch the keys go. So,
A side note on that paper roll you played the piano is not the one that Gershwin recorded.
no,
It was post-processed by a whole team of engineers.
Or it was by
And-
somebody
and then-
playing the
and
same
then-
song.
And when he heard the playback, he went and played the orchestral accompaniment too and gave that. So the engineers had to post-process that and put them together
Sure.
to make the current player roll.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as simple as a vinyl recording.
No, a lot more work. Okay, so I'd like to talk about streaming services now. There are many different streaming services available. First and foremost, Apple Music. Nice and simple. It works really well with all your Apple products. There's Pandora, there's Spotify, Amazon Music. If you're a Prime member, you get access to Amazon Music. There is a charge for it as well, but you get everything that Amazon has available, whether it's music or video, being a Prime member. And then there's many, there's SiriusXM and many more streaming services out there that, as Pat said, technology is shaking it out, and some of these streaming services are going by the wayside. For the most part, the streaming services offer a subscription-based service where you can, on a monthly basis, pay X number of dollars, depending on what level of service you want and how many people are on it. Apple Music, Pandora, Spotify all have a single user subscription-based service at $9.99 a month. And for that $9.99 a month, you get access to everything they have, commercial-free, so you can listen to your heart's content 24/7. Of the three companies that offer this, Apple is the only one that does not offer a free version. Pandora and Spotify have a free version. The free version comes with commercials, and typically it's about every 30 minutes you will get 3-4 commercials. At work, when someone turns on Pandora or Spotify, the joke is, when is the O'Reilly Auto commercial coming on? Because everyone knows that commercial. And as soon as you hear the, oh, O'Reilly, everybody starts laughing. Because, like, really, you're too cheap to pay for an account. But that's what Pandora and Spotify do. It is also surprising how they know where you're listening, because you will get local ads for local car dealerships. When we were in Knoxville last week, my wife's mother passed away, and we were down there for the funeral, and my wife was playing her Pandora station just to listen to it, and she has the free account. And all of a sudden, we're hearing an ad for the Knoxville Ford dealership. And she's, how do they know? I go, because you're connected to your dad's Wi-Fi down here in Knoxville. That's how they know. They're tracking where you are. You go somewhere else and you activate your account, they want to check and say, okay, we're going to play commercials for where you are at. You know, they're going to do some nationals, but they also do locals as well. Give me a minute. So that's what happens when you're with the free account. The paid account for the single, again, $10 a month. I use Apple Music, and I'm using the family plan. Pandora and Spotify also have a family plan now, and it's the same price. It's $14.99 a month, and it lets you have up to 6 listeners. Oh, that's pretty good. So my son that's in Utah is part of our plan. So he can stream that, and he can listen to anything in the iTunes music library for free because I'm paying the bill. But if he'd done it on his own, it'd been $10. Well, it'll let me do 5 people. Pandora and Spotify, however, require that it has to be up to 6 people in the same household address. So that's their little, I'm guessing, their gotcha for someone saying, Jim, I'm going to let you join my family music plan with Apple Music.
What's your password?
Exactly. And that would allow him to do it. But Pandora and Spotify, I can't use Jim as a family member. I can't use my parents as family members. My son wouldn't be able to do it because it's not the same physical home address. If they see that it is someplace else, they turn it off. So that's the one disadvantage I see there. But for $14.99 a month, if you split it up between 5 people in your family, suddenly that's really inexpensive to have access to every single song that those services offer. Yes, Ray?
Okay. Apple Music has changed the way they're making.
Sure.
They are asking you to pay approximately $10 a month, and then you can take whatever you want, put it on your computer, your iPhone, whatever. In the past, I was able to say, well, I just want one song, $2.
Yep.
Can't do that anymore.
No, you can.
You can?
Yep. You can still buy songs. If you are with Apple Music, the nice thing is you can download, you can make a playlist, put in a bunch of songs that you want to listen to, and it'll let you download it to that device. But when your subscription ends, that content is gone. You don't have access to it. If you want to buy a song, like, let's say Jim's favorite song, The Rhapsody in Blue, you can go to iTunes, you can buy that song.
Without being a member of Apple Music.
Yep. You just have to log in with your Apple ID to buy the song. You don't need Apple Music to buy music. You just need iTunes. So you can still, if there's just that one song that you want, you don't have to join Apple Music. Everything seems to be going subscription-based. Wouldn't everyone agree? Okay. So, I mean, we saw that with Adobe. We see that with Microsoft. Okay. How many people here have Comcast? How many people have AT&T for their home video? Who has Huawei or Charter? Okay. You are subscribing to a service every month for that. And and when did cable TV come back out? How many people have had HBO when it first came out? And you had the HBO box back in the early 80s. Okay, you paid for that on a monthly basis too. But you had access to all of that content that they had. Now they're doing it where you get it's like an on-demand service to watch previous shows. You can do that with Amazon Music, or Amazon Prime will let you pull in and pick up Amazon Video so you can watch TV shows or movies that are there. Netflix. I pay $10 a month for Netflix because my college-age daughter likes watching it, and my wife will every now and then watch it. I used to get the discs. I stopped having them send me DVDs. It just seemed ridiculous. So now it's just for streaming. I have cut my cable bill with Comcast tremendously by just going internet only because I have Netflix. All right. I have DirecTV Now. And with my DirecTV Now through my Apple TV, I pay $35 a month. I get everything that was on cable that I wanted to watch. None of the stuff that I didn't care about. And if I really wanted to put HBO on it, it's another $5 a month. I'm not a Game of Thrones fan. If anybody is, congratulations. I'm not. But with that being said, they're all headed to the subscription plan. If you don't want to be on a subscription plan, there are alternatives. Over-the-air television is available. Over-the-air HD television is available. You just need an antenna.
It's getting into the reduction.
Right.
Where you're getting more than you need.
Sure.
And now with HomePod,
What did he say?
you have to have Apple Music subscription.
Right. Well, no, you don't. You can play from your device to the HomePod. It does make it a lot easier if you have an Apple Music subscription to play to the HomePod. It makes it really easy. But it is not essential. But Apple would prefer that you signed up for a free 60-day trial or 90-day trial because they're hoping that you'll like it so much you'll get hooked into it and you'll want to stay with it. There is also other options. Pat can probably attest to this the best. Libraries are our best friends.
Oh,
Always. You can go to the library. You want to watch your favorite TV show? You can go to the library and get a copy of it on DVD or on Blu-ray. But you're not watching last night's episode. You're watching last season's
that's
episode.
assuming your library is being funded at any level at all.
Right. So every library is a little different, but depending on what library you're with, it
And
depends
what-
on where you're at. Yeah. So that being said, you have those options to do it without subscribing. It's just some people can't wait to see the next episode of whatever their favorite show is. And other people can do I can wait till it shows up on Netflix. Okay, that's just up to you. But if you're waiting for the next season on Netflix, you're still paying a subscription fee for it anyhow. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on quickly is SiriusXM. So anybody in here with a new car in the last 3 years?
Oh, yeah.
Who has Sirius? Okay, so they now give you Sirius for 6 months, maybe a year. And then after that, they would like you to subscribe to their service. And their service is like $15 a month to get Sirius. I don't need SiriusXM for $15 a month. I let my thing lapse. They sent me lots of letters. They sent me lots of emails. And then I got phone calls. And I told them, I said, there's only one station I listen to, and that's it. And it's not worth $15 a month to have. You know? And they said, well, what if we gave it to you for 6 months for $5 a month? Okay, I'll drop $30. Sure. Well, we'll let you have it for a year for $99. I am not a math whiz, but even I said, well, wait, if I'm $30 for 6 months, why don't you just give me a year for $60? Oh, no, that's not an option. Okay, I'll take the 6 months. The 6 months came and went. The next month, it was, it's now $19 a month. So I called them up and I canceled. And while I'm on the phone with them, they did if I could extend that 6 months for $30 again, would you do it? Well, yes. Will you credit that $19 towards that $30? Oh, sure. Okay, that's fine. Because the only station that I truly listen to on Sirius is Margaritaville, because I am a parrot head. And now there's a Beatles station. Oh, okay. And there is a few other stations that, okay. But if you were to go out to my truck, and I start my truck, Margaritaville comes on. That's the radio station I listen to, unless I'm streaming a podcast from my phone. So for me, it's good. If I lose it, not the end of the world. I can live without it. So it does. Yeah, you're right. It does become addictive. You get used to it. You get comfortable with it. And you're like, well, it's only this much. But then when you sit down and you do the math and you figure out how much am I spending on all of this? You know, I was at the point with Comcast, I was dropping about $200 a month. And I had no pay-per-view stations. I had no premium stations. I'm like, this is stupid. You know, my wife wants to watch the traffic in the morning. And I might want to watch a couple of shows here or there during the week. But it doesn't make sense. And so when the DirecTV Now came up, they gave me an Apple TV for free for prepaying for 3 months. So for $105, I got a brand new Apple TV. I got 90 days of their service. And I just stuck with it because it gives me 100 channels. I'm good. And that's wonderful. And that option, I think, is still out there going on right now, or it might have ended. But there's a number of things you can do if you want to be a cable cutter. There are a lot of options for that out there.
You still need the cable for Wi-Fi.
Need it for my internet. So my $200 a month bill is now $59 a month. And I have the same Wi-Fi or the same internet speed that I had before. I just cut out all the TVs, and then they did the, oh, well, this is part of a package. You get this box, you can watch local channels on it. Okay. I didn't even hook the box back up. I'm just running the internet because that does everything I need. Yes?
Could you tell me the logic why Apple requires you to sign in with your subscriber company? I dropped Comcast anymore. So half of what's on Apple TV, I can't see anymore.
Right.
Because I'm not with Comcast.
Right. I am the same thing. So the logic behind that is certain apps like CNN Go, that's an app for the Apple TV. If you want to have that on there, it wants you to sign in with your local provider to make sure that, yep, you're supposed to be getting it, so you can watch it for free. Okay, well, if you don't have Comcast anymore for your cable, that app stops working unless you've picked up another provider. Now, if you download the CBS app, you don't have to sign in with your provider. You could, but the CBS app would prefer that you spend $5.99 a month, and they will give you access to everything in the CBS vaults that they have available, so you could binge watch your favorite season of a show.
Yeah, but I could use the NBC app. I can watch NBC app. I'm watching it now over the air for free. If I want to use the app on Apple TV,
correct.
I got to sign on with
Yep.
Comcast.
Yep. You know who owns Comcast?
Say again?
Do you know who? Well, Comcast owns NBC. But still, you're right. The ABC app, the NBC app, you've got to sign in with your local provider to do that. And that is a drawback. But that was a compromise, I think, that had to be made when they said, we're going to make this stuff available on the Apple TV. Now, there are other channels on there that you can download or put the app on there, and you don't have to sign in. National Geographic has a channel. You don't have to sign in for that. There's a couple of other ones. But there are ones that you will, like you said, the NBC, the ABC, the CNN, I think the Fox News. There's a couple other ones where they just want you to tie into your provider to go from there because they don't have a way for you to hook up an antenna to your Apple TV to bring the over-the-air feature down onto it. So, Pat.
Net neutrality is what you're talking about.
No, that's not, that's a different topic.
This is part of it. And then the business model.
The business model I would agree with.
When they find out where you're at, which is not a big problem, but if I want Chinese restaurants in the Detroit area, I get it in 5 Mile. When I went to the Virgin Islands and put it in, they gave me 25 miles. The nearest one was in Puerto Rico, but the thing is, if they know where you're at, we're a data point. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing personal about it. We're just age, sex, race, place of national origin, political affiliations, whether you like Chinese or Thai or German. And the same thing with, it's a business arrangement. And if, unlike telephone, net neutrality is involved in this. Because if you think of the internet separate and apart from telecommunications as internet and telephone landlines, even where they are dish to dish, which many are Comcast is in many places, or it can be wired. No, there's the private sector and the national good. And net neutrality is the issue. They can by creating the private sector, they can deny any or all of us access, or they can slow it down to the point where we don't want it and the producers can't. And distributors can't get the market to keep in business, because every business has to bring in more money than it costs to keep their doors open. So that's
Sure. So
back to my life.
we're gonna disagree or agree to disagree on the net neutrality thing, but that's okay. So we're gonna move forward though
Yes,
to keep the presentation going.
Yeah,
So.
the only comment is I like to listen to Don Cherry between periods on Hockey Night in Canada.
Okay.
And so I downloaded the CBC app. And it said, we won't let you do that.
Right.
You can't watch that here.
Right.
So I went back to my over-the-air antenna, which in this area I can watch Hockey Night in Canada in real time. And there are resources like that the provider has decided that it's only going to be sold in Canada or Detroit or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing even to do with the network you're on.
Okay.
And they decided that if somebody from the U.S. doesn't give them a check, then nobody in the U.S. is going to see this data unless they steal it over the air.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm using their language.
Sure. All right. So let's get on with the rest of this. So I want to talk about speakers now, because that's part of music. These ways that you do listen to your content. With speakers, we had someone, if you had the old stereo system set up, you were hardwired. And with hardwire, like the speakers in the room here, that's all hardwired in. It runs to a receiver and an amplifier, so you can then send your signal to it and push it out throughout this room, throughout your house, throughout your business. But there's also wireless as well, and more of us are heading towards wireless with their speakers. I'm going to try something. I'm looking for a reaction. So bear with me for just a second here. Okay, that was an iPod HiFi. I've had that since it came out. I've adapted it with a Bluetooth module so I can play content without having to have it plugged into the device. I really like that. I think it sounds great. Next. See if this works. That speaker is the Sonos Play One. I have these all over my house now. The Sonos speaker is a very small coffee can size speaker. It's on the piano. It's in black, sorry. It's fantastic. I have their play bar hooked up to my television, along with two larger speakers in the back. They're wireless. Now, wireless in the sense of it does not need a wire to get the audio to it. They still plug into the wall to get power. But I have these set up around the house. I can group them. I can play music in the entire house all at the same time. And I think it's wonderful. I was slightly disappointed when Apple came out with a better product. And that's the HomePod. I brought my HomePod with me today. I got in a lot of trouble when I first bought it from my wife. And I'll tell you why. So, first things first. Hey Siri, play. This is going to freak my wife out. Hey Siri, turn on bedroom lights.
Oh, no, she's gonna get you.
Yeah. That is the feature that sold my wife on this. Because she can take her glasses off, hop in bed, and instead of having to go turn the lights off, she can just lay in bed and tell Siri to turn off the lights. And she does, because I have the lights in the bedroom hooked up to a module that works with HomeKit, which works with Siri on the HomePod.
She have to clap twice?
No clapping involved at all. Which is, the funny thing is, she will tell Siri to turn off the bedroom lights. Siri will turn off the bedroom lights, and we will hear, got it. And my wife insists on saying thank you. Which is amusing, but that's okay. She's gotten to the point now where she'll say thank you, and then she'll say, Siri, good night. And Siri will repeat back, oh, good night. Okay, cool. All right. I mean, is it a big deal? No. But is it one of those things where you go, oh, I never thought about technology being able to quite do that, but it does. I love the sound out of this. The sound, I think, out of this, it surrounds the room. It fills the room with sound. Now that the new software update came out, now you can pair these for stereo, or you can do multi-room as well. I'm doing the multi-room with the Sonos, so when I walk from one room to another, I don't get any lag of sound. The sound is, it's like it's staying right with me. These do the same thing.
I'm not sure I understand.
I know. So these are fantastic all the way around.
Of the three speakers you've used today, I like that one, the older one, the best.
And I'm not going to argue with you. When I want to listen to loud music, it's that one. If I want clarity, it's this one. If I just want background music, it's the Sonos all day long. The Sonos, really great sound, but for me, it's either I'm watching Arnold shoot up the terrorists on some movie, or I'm playing music through it just to run in the background. But if I'm truly listening to music, this is in the bedroom, so I'm great there. But if I'm up in my office, that's what's below the dresser, and that's what's cranking out the music. And then I get yelled at to turn it down. Sort of like when I was a kid. So that being said, those are your options. And you notice all three of those are wireless. So I've got another little treat. So give me a second. Yeah, you just saw that and heard that.
Is that wireless?
Yeah,
Is there anything besides
What is
battery
it?
inside?
Is that powered by a battery?
pretty much battery. So,
To a Ventilite.
What is it?
hang on, I'm gonna get there.
All right.
You can bring that back. Thank you very much. I do. I know you were showing. You want one of these. I want to keep this one. I don't want you going off with it.
Yeah, how much is one of those?
Hang on. You're going to be really happy. I promise. So, Sonos speakers, the HomePod, JBL back in 2005 had a set of computer speakers called the Alien. So they look like two little satellite alien creatures with a rocket ship subwoofer. I've enjoyed those speakers for years and years. They're great. I'd like to get them back from my son one day, but I don't think that's happening. So these are the JBL speakers are wired. They plugged into the USB port on the computer and ran the audio that way. The other ones are wireless. That little tiny golf ball, for better lack of a word, is called the nub. The nub is by a company called SoundBubble. SoundBubble gave us some of these to give away today. They asked me to review their headphones and their speaker, this little tiny guy. So this is called the Nub Mini Bluetooth Speaker. They come in black and white, and supposedly they have a blue and a pink one as well. You heard the sound. That's incredible. This comes in a tiny little box. Ta-da! It comes with a little micro USB plug for charging it. So you can just plug it into a little any 5-watt adapter and it'll charge. They say that this thing will play for about 10 hours on a charge. We'll get there. I'm sorry, not cameras, an iPhone. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you had a remote shutter to take your picture if your phone was up on a tripod? This does that. There's a button on the bottom that you can pair it up with your phone and it will take the picture. So if you're trying to do a group picture and you're running back to get in there, you can just take this with you and press it and that's your remote because it connects via Bluetooth. Pretty amazing, I think. That was probably the biggest surprise feature in there. Now, they sent me some information about this. This is the Nub speaker. You heard how it sounds. I told you about the fact that it will use as a shutter. I will post this up on the IBBS later on tonight. This speaker sells for $20. You can stereo pair these speakers. They sell a 3-pack for $49.99. So if you wanted to put one in each room and group them and let it go, you can do that. They are giving us a special as MacGroup members. Instead of $20, if you go to the SoundBubble website and order it and put in the code MUG20 or MUG20, they will give you 20% off, dropping the price down to $16, which I think is an incredible value all the way around. So that's what this little tiny device is. I had this at work yesterday after we closed, and I set it behind a HomePod that was playing. And I stopped the HomePod, and I started playing this. And the people at work just thought I switched songs. And I just looked at them, and I unplugged the HomePod, and I walked away. And they looked at me and they're, wait, where's that coming from? And I went, that. And they looked at this sitting on the counter. Now, is it as good as this? No. Is it darn close? Yes. I can emphatically say this blew my mind the first time I heard it.
For audiobooks?
And yes, it's very clear. I think it would be good for audiobooks. But I really enjoy it for just playing music. It will pair up to any device with Bluetooth. So a computer, a phone, an iPad, supposedly an Apple Watch. So, Shar.
And when is Apple going to buy SoundBubble?
I have no idea because they are a California company as well. So wait till we go a little further in this, and I think I will surprise you again. So there's a button on the bottom that you press to turn it on and off, and you hear it make its sound. So that being said, will this work? So the AirPods, again, I think they're worth every penny that Apple is charging for them. At first that's too much money. Now it's, I'll give you another $40. That's just my opinion. If you haven't tried them out, visit an Apple store. They have demo models that they clean with alcohol wipes every time they've been used. So you can try them out and see how the quality is for you. It will probably convince you that, yeah, these are nice. The Beats headphones, which Apple owns, they have a pair of Beats that have the same W1 chip inside of them as the AirPods. So if you didn't want the AirPods, maybe because you're afraid of them falling out of your ears, which they really don't.
They don't.
You jump around like an idiot and they don't fall out. But the Beats one actually theirs are over the ear and then go in, and there's a silicone strap that holds it in place. So they're more for exercising. So if you are worried about it falling out, it might be a better option.
Amazon sells something, I think, $10 that attaches to those. It's basically a string.
Yes.
Ear, so even if it does fall out of your ear, you don't lose it.
Right. So a guy at work bought that, and he says it's a big difference having those in with that strap on, because you would think it doesn't weigh anything. I mean, it's super light. He says you can feel it pull, just like if you had regular headphones in. The biggest problem was the wires were always in the way. And then the weight of it going down to wherever it was going, even though it's super light, that weight was enough to pull on your ears. And I think anybody that's had an earpod pop out of their ear before, especially the old style, it was painful. The newer style is not as bad, but still that weight of that cord really surprisingly added a lot to it. So, but again, Amazon does have that cable, just a silicone cable that plugs into the AirPods that you just slip it into and put it in and you're there. So with headphones, you have a number of different options. You have in-ear and you have over-the-ear. I think we're all familiar with over-the-ear. Those are the big cans. You have your 3.5 millimeter plug, the lightning plug, or Bluetooth. Okay? Is it casual or active listening? That usually will tell most people what they need when they say, well, I need it for, I'm just sitting at home, I'm not doing anything. Okay, then the cans might be great to give you all that sound quality. Oh, I'm going out for a 20-mile run. 1, you're crazy. 2, you want the ones that clip over your ears, so if you do fall down, they won't fall off and you won't lose them. A new thing is hearing aids. My father-in-law was telling me about his new hearing aids, and I've had a few other members ask me about, will these work with the iPhone? And my answer has always been, I don't know. I don't have hearing aids. I've never looked into it. But I'm now looking into it and doing they actually have made for iPhone brand hearing aids. So they will pair up with your phone or your iPad to give you the audio quality that you want to go from there. Before, it was you seemed to have a streamer box to stream content, say, from the television or whatever device it was plugged into, so you could hear things. So I think that's probably the next new wave of this is how we're going to be able to hear things, because again, we're not getting younger, and the ability to be able to hear things again that way, I think would be fantastic. So in this photo here, this is the AirPods. Below are the Beats headphones that plug into your device, and they have the over-the-ear clips, so if you're doing something active, they don't tend to fall out. And then Terry White's favorite headphones before the AirPods were the Bose Quiet Comfort noise canceling, which is, I think everybody that's ridden on an airplane, the first time you use noise canceling headphones on an airplane, oh, it's heaven. It is absolute heaven.
It makes a Piper J3 comfortable.
I'm sure it makes a lot of planes comfortable. So, the SoundBubble people, in addition to sending me the NUB speaker for testing, also sent me their EarBolts. Their Frankenstein logo is called Frankie because these EarBolts, if you look in the one picture, the upper right corner, yeah. So this is their Bluetooth wireless headphones. So if you put them in, they fit in your ear. You can run the cable behind or in front. This is essentially a battery pack, but it's also a control for turning it on and volume and take the call, don't take the call. There's a mic built into it. There's a micro USB port on it. The little nuts that are on here come off, and you can change them to different colors. The headphones come with 4 different colors. The biggest feature is they're magnetized. So if you have this wrapped around the back of your neck, you can click it, do what you're doing, not worry about losing them or having them fall down. I think they're pretty nifty. I was really impressed with the sound. I was not AirPods impressed, but I was close, just like this was HomePod. Really, really close. They have them, like I said, you can change it comes with 4 different bolts. Who needs nuts and bolts? Everybody needs nuts and bolts. But it comes with a pink, a black, silver, and then this copper bronze color, which is quite nice. Yes, you look a little like Frankenstein when you have them in your ears, because you've got bolts hanging out the side. So, moving on. Whoop. There we go. So, these headphones sell for $99. Okay. The Apple AirPods sell for $159. These say that it will give you 10 hours of music and 100 hours of standby time. That's a long time. The nice feature that the SoundBubble people gave us was that if you buy a pair of these, you get them at 20% off, so $79.99. They will also throw in a NUB speaker because we're Mac user groups. They will also give you free shipping. So that's a really heck of a good deal all the way around. And again, I will put this on the IBBS tonight so you can get the information. But it's soundbubble.com, and if you use the discount code Detroit MUG promo, it'll get you the 20% off. They will include this, and they will also give you free shipping. All right. I need to move on quickly because we're running out of time. I had a member ask me, how do I get music off my iPod back onto my computer? And won't it delete everything on my computer? The answer is no, it will not. If you plug in an older device to your computer, let's say you had music that you lost, your previous computer died, and you want to bring it back, there is a way to do it. This way to do this will not delete anything off your current computer. Typically, when you sync up an iPod to your computer, it will want to erase everything off that device. There is a program that will allow you to get that software or that data off of it. It is called Snooty. Snooty is iTunes spelled backwards, which is a very clever program that will allow you to retrieve music from an iPod. It was created by a high school student named Whitney Young, who wanted a method to bring back music from his iPod after his computer crashed. He wanted to get all that stuff back on in one fell swoop. So he wrote the software to do it. It is exclusive for Mac users only. There has never been a Windows version because the guy is a hardcore Mac fan. Kind of makes you smile when you think about that. Snooty can not only help you copy your music back, it now will also bring your playlists back for you too. I've been using Snooty since probably 2006. And back then, all it would do is just, they grab the music file and pull it back. Sometimes you had to put in the artist name and the song name and things like that, depending on where that content came from. But it'll do it. There is a free version and a paid version. The free version will allow you to bring back 1,000 songs. Okay, that's not bad. I have an iPod with 4,000 songs on it. Can I pick and choose? No. It brings back the first 1,000 songs in alphabetical order. So if there's a song further in, you don't get that with the free version. However, the full license copy is only $18.99. I bought this copy in 2006. I spent $18.99 for it then. I just downloaded it on this computer. I used the same license key that I used in 2006, and it accepted it. So I have the latest and greatest version. Once you buy it, that license is yours. There's no upgrade fees. The guy doesn't make a ton of money off of this, but this is what he does. If you are looking for this, this is in the presentation. The website to download it, if you want to do it, you want to download it from fadingred.com. There are other websites that have it available there, but if you download it from Fading Red, all the money goes right into this guy's pocket instead of him losing a cut to these other companies that are doing it. Apple does not support this software because when iTunes was created, the deal with the record companies were the music will go on the iPod, it doesn't come back off. It's a one-way street. And that was to prevent piracy. This guy found a way to do this because he needed to. So no one has shut him down. He's still in business, but this is not his bread and butter, shall we say. But this is it. So I think it's a great deal if you wanted to use that. Next up.